last year at this time, we were looking at the new rule changes in baseball.
Hmm.
Obviously, to speed up the game with the pitch clock and the bigger bases, which I still have no idea how it helped steal more bases, but apparently it did. And then, obviously, you get two pickoffs be, before the first base or whatever before you have to throw over.
Hmm.
For the record, am a baseball traditionalist. I did not think I was going to like the pitch clock at all. I thought it was going to ruin what made baseball, which was the stare down in the ninth inning with two outs, 3-2 count.
Hmm.
But it really did speed up the game and made the game a lot faster. I mean, going to a Guardians game, I went to one game this year late in the year. I went to go get a sweat jacket. I missed about two or three innings, where in the past I would have missed maybe an inning or, an inning and a half. So it really did speed up the game. But, your thoughts on, are you a fan of these rule changes? Do you think it helped the game? And do you really think it's bringing fans back to the sport?
I am also a bit of a traditionalist, so I didn't think I was going to fully like them, and like some I like more than others. Though, like a small part of me, at least from the pitch clock point of view, was like you're going to a game to have to enjoy being at the game and stuff. Why do you want to make that experience you know less time and stuff like that is part of my mind. But also I do understand the argument of like, for some people, speeding it up, blah blah blah. So I mean, for the pitch clock, it didn't end up being like a big issue, like not something that like I was constantly thinking about. The one rule I'm not as much of a fan of is the throwing the first for the pickoffs, and the two attempts, if you fail after the second attempt they get a free walk or whatever. That one I think is a little because it brings that part, it gives a little bit, I think, too much power to the base runner in that situation.
Yeah, I
And
I agree because you automatically know after two I can get as big of a lead as I want. You know,
basically,
essentially. Um, what's your thoughts on the ghost runner on second base? Because I think second base, if you hit two sack flies, you're in. Um, I wouldn't mind you putting one on first base. I think it could speed it up a little bit, but putting a runner on scoring position with nobody out in an extra inning game just seems a little bit. And I know most of the time they score, and it does seem like it favors. To me, it does favor the home team, especially if you don't get two as the road team. And I don't understand why more teams don't bunt.
right? That is probably the one I dislike the most of the new rules. That one I feel is just like it just seems like a cop out to just get runs in. It really
Yeah, and it's a
does.
gimmick. It's sort of like college football overtime. And I've always said gimmicks are saved for wrestling. And I don't like gimmicks in real sports.
Right. And it, it's very unearned. It feels unearned when they get that run and everything like that. Given, it could, hypothetically shorten the game, blah blah blah. I know that's a big contention point with those, writing the rules and everything. But in my opinion, I think that one should have stayed on um the idea notebook that they got there. Um, I will say though, um, some opportunities it may not shorten a game. As this, I went to a couple guards games last year, and I went to the one against Houston that went like 15
Oh
innings
my
or
god,
whatever.
yes,
I was
that was
at
an
that game,
insane game.
and that game was given. It was super exciting and everything, but like just because they had that extra runner on base, it kept extending the thing because it was easier for both teams to score. So
Yes.
I mean, like in my opinion, I think at the end of the day, you're going to run into those outliers, obviously, but that one I think should have stayed
Yeah, I
in their
said that
minds.
unevented baseball would have been on time of game because games should not be taking 4 or 5 hours like they were.
No, not
I
that
think there
long.
I think there's a good compromise of if a game starts at 7, it should end at 10, not at 9:30 and not sometimes at 11:15 like they were, you
Right.
before the rule changes. So last question for you. It's an open-ended question.
Okay.
Our Guardians this year, we have a new manager, Stephen Volk.
Hmm.
Our team is very young. Minnesota has lost a lot of their pitching. This seems like a down year for the Twins after they had an up year last year because they never had 2 years consecutive back to back. White Sox are in a disarray. Kansas City's rebuilding. Like, I don't know if Detroit has the capabilities to take the division yet. I think that, this Guardians team, they could win 85 games and win the division this year. I think
Hmm.
they're going to be a decent team. I think they're going to be better than last year. I think it all depends on if that rotation stays healthy. I like the fact Bieber's velocity is still up.
Hmm.
I don't know where they're going to get a lot of power from again. We'll see if this Mendoza can produce some power at first base, if Josh Naylor can get his power back. But I think this team, it really is going to be the 2022 Guardians, maybe potentially just not as much firepower on the offensive end.
And it when you were when I was like thinking of when you were going to pose a question on the team and stuff, definitely I think the biggest, you know, this the thing that really hinges on how the season really truly goes is how the pitching room stays healthy. It really, really is, because that really hurt last year with Bieber and um, McKenzie getting hurt in the season and kind of disrupting things. And the good thing is the pitching rotation is also really young, at least from the starter standpoint. Like you got Bieber as the big time vet. You got Tristan McKenzie, who's a really good, still relatively young but seasoned player, and then you've got Williams, Allen, and Bybee, who are like absolutely like, especially Bybee and Williams near the end of the season, were showing some really, really good stuff. So like the team has a really good opportunity to have a really good pitching rotation. I think the bats will be a little bit better than last year. Just with also, some younger players getting a little bit more time to develop, like the younger Naylor Bo. Because that was one giant hole on the bats last year was from the catcher
Yeah,
position
they
most
got
of the
no
season.
offense from it. And by the way, for the record, I always defended both Roberto Perez and Austin Hedges, who, by the way, Hedges is back. But even
Right.
though they didn't produce much offensively, I'm sorry. Those are, and I'm not biased. I truly believe this. They are both the two best defensive catchers I have ever seen in my lifetime.
Oh, I can get behind that. Um, Outside of like, very few shorthand players, like the difference is though that catcher or that positional player needs to be, you know, really good to make up if they're going to have a lack of offense.
Yes,
That's, yeah,
and
walk
both
that
of
fine
them
line.
were. And last year Zanino was not, and I don't think Bo was as good, which I think hurt the pitching staff. And I
Right.
said that was I think the pitching staff sort of struggled because whether it was Cam Gallagher or whoever else behind the plate, they were not as good as catchers defensively. And our pitchers were so used to throw a breaking ball in the dirt and Hedges or Brett would just block it, seemingly no matter what, that they
Mm-hmm.
almost had to be more purred with their pitches, which led to a lot more pitches down the middle, which led to a lot more home runs. Um, I do think that Edges will bring a calming presence as a backup catcher, with Bo Naylor being the primary catcher.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think, if you can hit in this day and age, guys are hitting 220, but they're hitting 50 homers. So, if a catcher, even if he hits 180 or close to 200, if he's that good behind the plate, I can live with it.
I mean, I I honestly, we've agreed with a lot of things today, but that is definitely something will echo too. If you know, as long as like the position isn't a dumpster fire,
I mean,
which
it can't be. What was it last year? Like early in the year, it was like 130. It was a disaster.
Zanino was bad.
was. Yeah. Again, we agree. We agreed on a lot today, David. Like that clip from the Friends World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandon's World podcast right here on YouTube.